Have you ever stared at an old photograph? You think that you know the person, but then again, you're not quite sure. Someone standing next to you says, "Are you kidding me? You don't know who that is?" You know you should recognize them, but there's still not enough familiar features. But somehow they don't seem like the same person. Hi, I'm Steve, and welcome to another Down Home Clean Carnivore video. That's how I sometimes felt when I look at photographs of myself from just a few years ago. Yes, I've lost weight. Anyone can see that. What isn't obvious is how much my life has changed along the way. When I started low carb and later carnivore, I thought I was changing the way I ate. What I did not realize was that it would change the way I thought and even the way that I lived. The first step was a simple yes. Barbara O'Neill introduced me to low carb eating, and I said yes. A door opened, and then another, and then another. And by the time that I noticed what was happening, my life was moving at Mach 2 with my hair on fire. The doors were not merely opening, they were flying open, one after another. I'd walk through one and another would open, and then another, and then another. One of the things that amazes me when I look back now is how much happened in such a short period of time. In just 30 days, I launched an online business from scratch. I had a Filipino VA team, a website, landing pages, social media, affiliate relationships, content going out every day, clicks, commissions, momentum. I felt like everything was happening at once. I built that team around the concept of family. And in fact, that's what I called them, family. At the time, I didn't think much about it. And I certainly didn't know that the Philippines would become part of my future. But now I can see how aligned that was with the culture. I would eventually come home. At times, it felt like an out of the body experience. I was watching my own life unfold, wondering where it was headed next. I felt like I was walking on cement, concrete, if you will, with footprints already put in it, stretched out before me. Each time I took a step, my foot struck. It fit perfectly into the next footprint. They were just my size. The Lord had gone ahead of me for sure. Then I traveled to the Philippines. The trip was not a vacation. Beth and I had been talking about marriage since our very first date. The purpose of the trip was simple. Could I live there? Could I handle the heat? Would I fit into the ministry? Would I get along with her brother and sister-in-law as part of the ministry team? In other words, could we build a life together? Those were the questions. When I arrived in Cebu, I was met by Beth, her younger brother, his wife, and a pastor. Being that it was 5 o'clock in the morning, I was jet lagged and exhausted. By Saturday afternoon, I started to come around. And while we were eating together, the pastor looked across the table and asked me a question. He asked, "Will you preach in my church tomorrow?" Without hesitation, I said yes. There was only one problem. I'd never preached a sermon before in my life. The other problem was I didn't have a sermon. So I woke up at 1:30 the next morning and I got up and I wrote one. And the following weekend, a pastor asked again, and I said yes. And by the third Sunday, I was prepared. Somewhere in the middle of that trip, the Lord spoke to my heart in the most matter-of-fact way. "This is your home," he said. And there was no argument on my side, no negotiation, no debate. Just a simple answer, "Yes, Lord." I returned to the United States with a trailer to set up and a future to prepare for and a wedding to plan. Beth arrived on Thanksgiving Day. We were married on December 7, and a week later, we were flying back to the Philippines, back home, to begin our life together. Looking back, the biggest change wasn't my weight. It wasn't my blood glucose. It wasn't even the depression lifting. The biggest change was that I was not the same man. The old Steve would have seen obstacles for sure. The new Steve kept seeing open doors. And every time a door opened, I walked through it. If you're still listening, then bless you. Have there been moments in your life when you knew something fundamental had changed? I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if you like what you're hearing and you found a home, hit the subscribe button and stick around. There's more to come.